Hello and welcome to NexTalks. I'm Nex, and this is where I talk. Today we're going to be talking about positive psychology. For over 6 years, I've been creating content online, mostly in the form of live streams, and the one common denominator and the thread that has kind of tied everything together from all the different types of content that I've done, from yoga to book reviews to ASMR to game nights and video games and all these different things that we've done, has been positivity and positive psychology. So the one defining, uniting factor throughout all of the content and all of my communities is that we all value positivity. Now, I came to learn about positive psychology when I was about 19 years old, and I discovered it through the reading of a book called Positivity by Barbara Fredrickson. In this book, she talks about something called the Losada principle, and this is the tipping point, the ratio at which your life will be leaning towards positivity and away from negativity. And this tipping point is 2.33, something like that, to 1. So the proposed theory is that if you have 3 positive experiences for every 1 negative experience, that you will be moving on this positive upward spiral in your life. And I have believed this and been perpetuating this for the last 6 years. And just the other day, in the writing of my book, I realized that this mathematical principle in relation to psychology has been completely debunked and demystified. So I wanted to talk about this a little bit with you guys today and talk about what that means and what I think about it. So basically what happened was that Barbara Fredrickson, who wrote this book and one of the leading PhDs and scholars on positive psychology, she crossed paths with someone named Marcial Losada, who is a mathematician, and he claimed and convinced her that his principle that works with mathematics was also applicable with happiness, and that he had discovered the tipping point for positivity, which was 2.9013. And she loved this. She ate it up. She thought it was great. And they were able to use this number to try to promote this idea of consciously increasing the amount of positive experiences somebody has so that they can have a better life and feel more positive overall and have more positive outcomes. So I have my copy of Positivity here in my hand right now. This book was copyrighted in 2009, and I never noticed this before recording this right now. So I'm glad to see this. There is an author's note in the beginning of the book where she talks about, in 2013, new scholarly work emerged that prompted me to update my thinking about the specific mathematical rationale for the tipping point positivity ratio that I introduce in this book. Now, she does say that more scientific evidence has started to support this, which I think was wishful thinking a bit at the time. And since then, she's pretty much removed it entirely. I think it might be completely gone from newer copies of this book, Positivity, but I don't have a more up-to-date version to check that against. But it does say here, given the progression in the scientific dialogue, I urge you to consider the descriptions of Losada's nonlinear dynamic modeling as compelling and useful metaphors rather than as mathematically precise prescriptions. She then goes on to say, at this point, I see Losada's contribution to my own work as akin to a bay leaf. I am grateful for the flavor it has offered to my investigations of positivity ratios, yet also aware that it is time to remove it from the pot. So I actually didn't realize that she had this in here, and I'm really glad to see that, because that's what a true scientist does. When they discover things that counter their hypothesis, they have to change their hypothesis. So I'm proud of her for that. I'm impressed with that, and I love to see someone who can admit when they were wrong or misled or duped. Because psychology is not really a science in the sense that we think of it as. There's so much desire with intellectuals to turn something into a science. We want the mathematical numbers and really easy solutions to the problems that plague us in terms of psychology and the human psyche. We want something where we can say, okay, this is a universal truth for all humans. And sometimes we can cling to something that appears to be that magical potion, and the reality is that it just simply is not. So this number, this 2.9013, is not a legitimate number, and it's not going to be true for everyone. Now, I do think there is a lot of validity to this theory that by increasing the amount of positive experiences that we will have better, more positive outcomes and a more positive mindset. I just think that that tipping point, that ratio, is probably different for everyone. For instance, we know that genetics play a major role in somebody's happiness set point. We know that some people are just born apparently happier and more optimistic. So these people probably have a lower ratio and don't require quite as much conscious activity towards keeping themselves positive as somebody who is more pessimistic or has genetics that predispose them to things like depression or other types of mental illnesses. Of course, the reality of environment and environmental external influences on us is very important to consider as well. So things like trauma and life-changing events like accidents or disasters are going to impact us not just psychologically, but even on a genetic level, and the study of epigenetics and the effects that our environment has on the way that our genes express themselves and the different ways that certain genes will turn on or off in response to various stimulus. So does the mathematical number for this tipping point really matter? In my opinion, no. I really think that the science does seem very supportive of the idea that the more positive experiences we have, the better off we are. And all we can do with that information is just increase our positive experiences as much as we can. So the research shows that people that have more positive experiences have more creativity, they're more resourceful, and they're more resilient. So this means that they're better at solving problems, coming up with creative out-of-the-box ideas and solutions, as well as bouncing back from the inevitable negativity that we're all going to experience. Because no matter how positive you are and how much you focus on positivity, there's still going to be negative experiences in our life. That's just life, right? That's the yin and yang of the human experience. So rather than focusing on all of these negative things, by focusing the majority of our attention on positivity, I think we do ourselves a great service. So how do we do this? How do we increase the amount of positivity in our lives? First, we should understand the different forms of positivity. And there's probably more than this, but this is the 10 forms that Barbara Fredrickson references in her book Positivity, and I'll share them with you now. They are joy, gratitude, serenity, interest, hope, pride, amusement, inspiration, awe, and love. So by simply being aware of all of these forms of positivity, you can start right now increasing them in your life. Think about the things that make you laugh. Think about the things that make you feel awe, maybe something out in nature. What makes you feel love? It could be a person that you love, it could be an activity or an object, an item that you love, and by connecting with it or with them, you can automatically increase this experience of love or amusement or finding something that you're interested in. Interest is one of my favorite and I think most underrated forms of positivity that people don't think about as positive. So many of us think just being happy and ecstatic and exuberant and excited is what happiness is all about. But when we're really engaged in something, really interested in something, maybe watching some cool nature documentary or reading a book that we find really interesting, or even a person that we find interesting, we are engaged in a positive experience even then, even if our energy is kind of calm or mellow, or even sometimes when I'm interested in something, I even furrow my brow because I'm really trying to focus or I'm confused and I'm trying to figure something out. And all of that is actually considered a positive experience. One which I love very much, and I find a great way to increase positivity in my life, but you might resonate more with other forms. So find ones that stand out to you and start increasing this right away. If you're having a hard time, there's a great tool that Fredrickson presents in this book called the Positivity Toolkit. So what you do is you take each of the 10 forms of positivity and you create something around that experience. For instance, for amusement, you could make a collection of all of your favorite movies. You can put them in a folder on your computer or sort them through in a list in your favorite streaming service, or you could make some type of like poster board with some of your favorite comedians or jokes on there. You could have a little plastic basket full of funny joke books or funny books or little collections of jokes. Whatever works for you, something physical that you can go to and turn to when you're looking for something positive to pull you out of a negative mindset. You can do the same thing with joy. You can put a bunch of pictures that make you happy in a little box, and whenever you want to pull them out and look at them, you can very quickly turn your mood around and start to help yourself feel joyful. So I love this positivity toolkit idea, but I'll be honest with you, I've never actually done this myself. So maybe this is something that we could work on together. And if you have different ideas for ways to do this, please let me know either in the comments or you can reach out to me on social media. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of NexTalks. I'm Nex. I talked. I hope you liked it. If there's anything else you'd like to hear me talk about, or if you'd like to add on to this conversation, you can do so in the comments or by reaching out to me on social media. If you do like this podcast, please help me to keep it going by supporting me either right here or on my website. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.